Hello and welcome to Locked On NBA. Is youth being served across the NBA in these playoffs? The Pacers, Wolves, and Mavericks seem to think a changing of the guard is in the works. That is next on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. It's always free, never behind a paywall. Locked On NBA is also available on YouTube for fans to enjoy. Make sure you are subscribing to the audio and video feeds for this channel. Be an everydayer, be a part of the conversation. I'm Andy Kamenetsky, one of the co-hosts of Locked On Lakers. I am joined by Swipa, one of the 6 or 7 co-hosts of Locked On Nuggets, and it feels, quite frankly, really unfair, like an HR violation, that I am co-hosting with the host of a team that has mine down 0-3 in these playoffs when it feels like a sweep is inevitable. I got to talk to Nick Angstadt, the channel leader for the NBA. This feels like seriously an HR violation, Swipa.
It's all good talks. It's just it so happens to line up that way. Did not. I thought a sweep was on the table, and I think it didn't really solidify itself till after game 2 that it was more than likely going to happen. But yeah, we can get to that a little bit later for sure.
Yeah, and there feels like there could be another sweep in the works in the Western Conference, but we will begin with the first of the 3 playoff games. Friday night, the Pacers taking a 2-1 lead over the Bucks. The first of the games in Indiana. They win 121-118 in overtime. Khris Middleton, hell of a Robin performance. No Giannis in this game. 42 points for the Bucks, 16 of 29, plus 10 rebounds, 5 assists. Dame Lillard, 28 points, but 6 of 20, and his scoring and efficiency has been really, really up and down. And then Miles Turner, 29 points for the Pacers. Pascal Siakam, 17. He was really big on the glass. I thought Aaron Nesmith was terrific defensively. And then in overtime, Swipa, you got the go-ahead bucket from Tyrese Halburton. And I thought in a lot of ways you could feel just the youth and the energy of these Pacers really revealing itself down the stretch in ways that were, I think, kind of inspiring and at times even a little bit nerve-wracking if you're Rick Carlisle.
Yeah, I mean, definitely youth, but I think for me, this whole thing comes down to the Bucks. They just, even without Giannis, I feel like this is the matchup that they should be able to take advantage of and win. I mean, the Pacers can't stop anybody, but the Bucks, they continue this theme that they started all year, that even when they have the veterans on the court, Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, they can't get any stops themselves. And so really frustrating to watch on their end, because you get a 42-point performance from Khris Middleton, and then you get 28 points from Damian Lillard. I mean, you would expect that to be more than enough to be able to win that matchup, but they don't. It ends up being a Tyrese Halburton game winner. And again, full court, run up the court, and then he crosses over Patrick Beverley, and then Patrick Beverley, being overzealous, fouls him on the other end and hits him across the head to add on to the game winner. And again, this is after Khris Middleton had 2 3-pointers to tie the game up on separate occasions in order to put them back in the game, man. So again, just a lot of things just went well for the Bucks, but they could not control the game enough themselves defensively in order to actually come out with this win. And, looking at Doc Rivers, Khris Middleton, Damian Lillard, they got all the age on their side. They got the coaching. Doc Rivers, a top 15 all-time coach per the NBA. Damian Lillard, one of the best offensive players in the league, veteran. And then you got Khris Middleton doing what he did. And then Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis. They got NBA champions on their roster, Andy. And they just don't feel like a team that has any real confidence in what they're supposed to be doing on a night-to-night basis. And it really is so frustrating, I would imagine, for Milwaukee Bucks fans to have to watch this happen even without Giannis Antetokounmpo being there.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, those issues that they had, and Milwaukee's had problems all season long finding an identity, but they become magnified so much more without Giannis. And honestly, side note for Bucks fans, it has to be concerning that this is the second straight postseason where Giannis has been, unavailable or struggling to be available in the opening round of the playoffs. Like, forget even just the idea of getting injured in the third round or whatever. Like, this is early on, and they're already dealing with Giannis's absence. They bring in Doc Rivers supposedly to bring all this turmoil to a place where all of a sudden this team has an identity on both sides of the ball. And Doc has spent a lot of this season feeling like a guy openly regretting his decision, but he couldn't turn down the money. Couldn't turn down, I guess, the opportunity. Figured he'll be back on the golf course again at some point. But like he has the body language of a guy who feels like he made a mistake. Like, well,
even the comments about Damian Lillard about his Achilles and the explosion and everything, and it just doesn't. Again, the whole situation right now just feels like everything is completely up in the air, and there's just not a lot of control. I would say coming from the top, but ultimately, you want to give a shout out to the Pacers, man. Like, the Pacers were able to win this game, take care of business, and to be able to do this with as much youth as they have. And Aaron Nesmith, like, his defense, the three-point shooting off of the corner, that's all huge. And Halburton, and this is what I want to say, man, Halburton, like, he hasn't been healthy for me for months. And 18, 10, and 16 assists in a playoff game. And again, you're clearly still hampered a little bit because he's not the same player he was to start the year off. This is huge, man. So I love Andrew Nembhard's game as well. They got some really nice pieces in Indiana. And if they can get this series win, this could be a great propellant for them for next year with Pascal Siakam.
Well, you mentioned Halburton and the 16 assists, which are obviously it's a staggering total. But what really jumps out at me is it's against just 4 turnovers. Right. And in the fourth quarter and overtime, he had 1 turnover combined. And it just speaks to, Halburton ultimately ends up getting the game-winning go-ahead bucket for the Pacers. But this is a game where he was 8 of 22 from the field. I mean, a lot of that was affected by going 1 of 12 from behind the arc. But it never felt like Halburton was really hurting the Pacers, even though he wasn't able to get the shots to fall, because he doesn't take a lot of bad shots, and he exercises so much control over the game in a way that he makes very few mistakes. And he's able to keep everybody just moving on a string and operating, from the same place where they can offset whatever issues he's having. And, Pat Bev clearly relished the idea of trying to mess up this young point guard at times. I think he went a little overboard, not just even that last shot. He picked up like 2 fouls on Halburton in about 5 seconds. But Miles Turner was terrific. Pascal Siakam had 2 critical offensive rebounds, like in the last minute of the fourth quarter, that set up, I think, Nembhard getting to the line, or Nembhard bucket, and then an and one opportunity for Siakam himself. The Pacers had 4 offensive rebounds in overtime alone. And that's where I was saying before, Swipe, like the youth of the Pacers, to me, it just felt like they were able to get to those 50-50 balls, give themselves more opportunities so they could offset that lack of experience.
Yeah, we'll see. Definitely going to see. It's going to be interesting next game. I think game 4 is going to have a lot to it. Again, another game in Indiana. And again, we'll see if their youth can carry over with that energy and some of that just the diligence that they had today that was kind of carried them to a victory. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, they're a precocious team, but they're built, especially now. You mentioned, bringing in Siakam, and like they're obviously focused on this series, but you think about what they're going to look like with him fully integrated, and he's bringing some of that experience that the rest of these guys don't have in the playoffs. He has that championship with the Raptors. They could be a fun team, on the rise, especially if they learn how to play a little defense, which he will actually help with. A team that does not seem to be on the rise right now, Let's go with the Suns because they are potentially at a serious crossroads now, down 0-3 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Again, youth being served. We'll talk about that coming up next. Locked On NBA is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver who likes to push things a little bit further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around in the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue, it's perfect for city drives, great escapes, the class exclusive. Google built-in is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone, Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store. They are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment center. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Nissan's incredible lineup also includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. It's got room up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. With 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds of towing, it's amazing what this car can do for you. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada and go find your next adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. And Locked On NBA also brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get things off our chest, big or small, certain just issues. They start to get to you, they build up, and it's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased in your life. And you look for those different outlets. We both host shows for the Locked On Lakers, Locked On Nuggets, and we hope that they can provide a stress release for, our listeners, our viewers. But at the same time, doesn't matter how much you live for the Lakers, bleed that powder blue for the Nuggets. We both know there are more pressing and stressing issues in real life than just your favorite team. And we all need somebody that we can speak with when those issues are building up. And I can personally speak to how much therapy helped me and my family during a really difficult period in our lives. Therapy can be really different for everyone and a really great experience. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suited for your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. So the final of these 3 games tonight, Swipa, was the Timberwolves and the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix now at home for the 3rd game, and they don't look really any better at home than they have on the road. They fall down 0-3. Minnesota wins 126-109. Massive game from Anthony Edwards. 36 points on 12 of 23 from the field. Got to the line 11 times, made all of them. 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and just swag through the roof. I mean, that dude just drips charisma. He is a real candidate to be the next face of the league. And what's awesome about Ant is he truly wants that. Rudy Gobert, 19 and 14. Cat, 18 points, 13 rebounds, 5 on the offensive glass. You just got terrific performances up and down from Minnesota. Their defense is swarming. And another game, Swiper, where I know this is nothing new to throw out as an observation about Phoenix. They don't run anything offensively. Like, you just watch them and you're like, I don't think I've ever seen 3 scorers who seem to have as much difficulty generating offense together as this team with Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker. It's shockingly ugly to watch when you think about the talent.
Well, so last game prior to game 3, I noted that they did not attempt a shot at the rim, the Suns versus the Timberwolves, until 6 minutes and 19 seconds left in the first quarter. And then when you watch today's game, KD starts the game off with a tough pull-up 2 over Karl-Anthony Towns. In my head, I'm just like, why did I even think that the Suns could possibly win this series? And I entirely relied on too much regular season data, because all they did is said, look, we're bigger than you, we're longer than you, and we're way more physical than you all are. We're just going to turn you into a bunch of jump shooters, and you're not going to beat us that way. And even their defense has been so abysmal. they have been allowing this Timberwolves team that's not a good offense to just blitz them from the perimeter because their rotations are trash. Their transition defense is awful. They don't communicate. They overhelp. Like even just basic X outs. They're messing up and two people are going in the same direction. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker apparently off the bench, 4 of 10 from 3. He's been a good spot up 3-point shooter this year. I would never take away that I wanted him. I told people last year he's a 6'6", 6'5" combo guard who's an elite POA defender, screen navigator, and then he's also a lock and trail guy, and then he's also a good shooter. I don't know why more people didn't go after him. He's had a 2-year, $9 million deal last year. Again, makes no sense. He's a really good player, and when you put him next to Mike Conley and Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards, you're going to have problems. And Naz Reid, you're going to have problems. Monte Morris, you're going to have issues. And so I'm watching the Suns. And again, I already said this on Twitter, but to me, we'll get to the Lakers game. I can understand the Lakers getting swept by Denver. That's something that's happened before. But for the Suns to be down 3-0 to a team that's never had anyone down 3-0 in the history of their franchise and to be led by a 22-year-old when you got KD, Booker, and Beal is unacceptable. And Frank Vogel, you won a championship. Not Chris Finch. Frank Vogel has. It's unacceptable. And I think for everything that Matt Ishbia has put into that team, which I think some of this is being overzealous on his part, but
you think
he gave him KD, he gave him Bill. Like, again, they don't have a point guard and all that, but they can't even functionally create enough offense to get penetration at the rim or to get Rudy Gobert any place away from the basket, because if they take Nurkic out, they're cooked. They want to put Eubanks in there, but they can't put KD at the 5. And so therefore he's just hovering, and they're having issues generating quality looks consistently. But then, like I said, on the other end, because they're so discombobulated offensively, by the time they get back on defense, their defense is all over the place. So it looks like they look like a team with nobody that's been to an NBA Finals, with nobody that's won an NBA Finals, with no coach that's coached in the NBA Finals. They look like that team, not the Timberwolves.
You mentioned that disorganization. There was a sequence I think it was maybe 2 or 3 minutes into the third quarter where Jusuf Nurkic was bringing the ball up, which in and of itself odd. And I saw KD clap for the ball, doesn't get it. Nurkic ends up swinging it in a different direction. It ends up an empty possession. I don't remember if it ended up a miss or a turnover or whatever, but I actually saw Kevin Durant look over at the coaches on the bench. It seemed like saying, like, what the F is going on, man? Like, why is this guy bringing the ball up? What is going on? And just that concept of what is going on just kept running through my head as I was watching this, because like you said, the disorganization defensively, which is, it is a Frank Vogel calling card. I mean, he is a legitimately good defensive coach. They do not cover well. They don't rotate well. Like you said, they're allowing all these straight line drives to the basket. They are terrible at keeping teams off the glass. And then offensively, and this is where I do think having a coach like Frank Vogel can be an issue for them, because he's not a particularly good offensive mind. Like, you watched Mike Conley with the Timberwolves and the effect that he's had with this organization, and you wonder, like, how much somebody like him, a one-time All-Star, a very respected, solid player, but nobody who's on the way to the Hall of Fame, like the type of effect that Conley could have with the Suns, just getting guys in the right places and just being a conduit for offense. So, like, creating some type of flow. It's just ugly to watch, Phoenix.
Yeah, it's bad. So we'll see. Obviously we have more games to get to now, but just a really bad, awful, no good, very not so great performance from a team that you expected more from.
Well, I mean, Matt Ishbia, like you said, he is paying out the nose for this roster, and it ain't going to get any less expensive trying to fix it if he even can. The Clippers are in a bit of issues right now, down 2-1 to the Mavericks. And what is going on with Kawhi Leonard? We'll talk about that next. Locked On NBA is brought to you by LinkedIn. And when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn, it's not just another job board. It has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. It's so easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn understands that small businesses, you're wearing a lot of hats. You have to juggle a lot of balls. You don't necessarily have the time or resources to hire, and that's why they're always trying to find ways to make it easier. They've even launched a feature that helps you write job description so you can streamline it that much more. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. It's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So the final game of Friday, the Mavericks back at home take out the Clippers 101-90. The game wasn't necessarily as close as the score would indicate. Luka Doncic, probably the biggest scare was a little bit of concern that he was having a knee issue that was hobbling him early in the game, but he finished through it. Kyrie Irving was quite good, 21 points, 8 of 17 from the field, 6 assists, just 2 turnovers. PJ Washington, his first time in the playoffs, Swipa, he is living his best playoff life. He's loved being this agitator and instigator. And then Russell Westbrook ends up getting tossed because of a back and forth with Luka and then PJ Washington. He had been, I think, angling to get tossed this whole game. Kawhi Leonard does not look fully playable right now. And without Kawhi Leonard, I don't know how the Clippers are going to try to make a series out of this because they just do not look whole.
No, it's over. Oh yeah, I said Mavericks in 6 if Kawhi's not healthy, and he is not healthy. He's playing, looks like to try to help his team, but it's not helping his team. Andy, I knew in the second quarter of this game, Kawhi Leonard lost the ball on the left side of the court, dribbling, trying to do a post up at the nail. Just the same nail touch that he's always had over the course of his career. You shoot over or you power through, and then you shoot over at 6 feet. And he couldn't do it, lost the ball. And then in transition, Kawhi Leonard, who's proven to be one of the most dangerous transition defenders in the league for the last, since 2011, got absolutely beat and then couldn't rotate off of a missed shot. And it was just like, he's not the same player. He's like laboring up and down the court. He's not explosive. His defense doesn't look anything worthwhile right now. He can't plant. He's just not the same player. And it's so frustrating because he looks so good. I mean, he had, for the first 65 games of the year, he was in right next to KD, LeBron, and Tatum for first team all NBA for me. I thought he was having an incredible year. And really the first 40 games of the year, he was playing out of his mind. But, especially that December 1st stretch where they, the Clippers went like 23-5, whatever their record was. It just is frustrating because they're not going to beat the Mavericks if Kawhi Leonard's not healthy. And again, tonight, let's just look through this. Kawhi Leonard has 9 points in 25 minutes. Paul George, who's not hurt, Andy, he's not hurt.
Nope.
He's healthy. He had 7 points and 5 rebounds and 5 assists on 3 of 11 shooting.
5 fouls, which was a real problem for him. He spent the game in foul trouble, and I think that really affected him.
Paul George, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, Kawhi's out. What are you doing? The only reason this game was even a semblance of a game is because James Harden had to try to create everything for this team. Ivica Zubac, Norm Powell, that was it. That was their team. Those were the 3 players. James Harden, 21, 2, and 5. 5 of 8 from 3, minus 21. I'm not blaming James Harden for that. Where's PG? No. Where's Kawhi? Ivica Zubac, 19 points and 8 rebounds today, 8 of 11 from the field. Norman Powell off the bench, 30 minutes, 21 points, 4 of 6 from 3. They did their job.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out, Paul George, you're healthy. Like, this is why we did this, because in case Kawhi was down, we would at least have 2 of the 3 all-star players in the roster that are always available, and then they can play. If Paul George misses time, we got Kawhi and we got Harden. And Harden's been out by himself so far the last 2 games, and it makes no sense to me. And then even in the Mavericks, Luka Doncic played 40 minutes. He was 7 of 25 from the field. He has been shooting in the gutter since the playoffs started. And yet here we are looking at this matchup, and we're just like, okay, well, the Clippers, you have opportunities. Kyrie Irving at 21 on 8 of 17. Not anything pretty. Nothing spectacular. PJ Washington with 10 points. Derrick Jones Jr. with 11 points. Sure. But the pace is slow. The defenses have been set. And it's just like, Kawhi Leonard isn't healthy, but they're going to play him because he wants to play. Well, if that's the case, then I can't have PG just standing around. I can't have Podcast P just standing around and just doing nothing. Like, I like Paul George. He's a great player, but 7 points on 30 minutes is completely unacceptable regardless of the situation. If you're healthy, knowing your best player is not the same dude because he's clearly bothered by a knee injury.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I brought up the foul trouble for Paul George, I'm not using it as an excuse. I'm saying I think it drastically affected him.
Right.
And then with Kawhi, before we get into a couple of the games coming up tonight is Saturday, like, there was a point where I was noticing Kawhi Leonard 3-4 straight possessions. He was only guarding off-ball threats.
Right.
Like, he's guarding like Derrick Jones Jr. And you're seeing like Paul George is taking either Luka or Kyrie, but like James Harden or Russell Westbrook or Norm Powell, like, these are the guys who are guarding one of the other between Kyrie and Luka with Kawhi Leonard on the floor. Like, that told me everything that I needed to know. And then, like, this wasn't like a cross match type thing or guys getting back in transition and you end up on a random guy. This was by design. Like, these were the guys that he was out there, PJ Washington, Jones, guys like that normally, like, you'd never, frankly, waste Kawhi Leonard on those guys. But he had a couple dunks, but those dunks were with nobody in front of him where you could just make like a straight line drive. He cannot move laterally right now. He can't drive around anybody. He can't pick up people defensively. Like, they're going to have to make a real decision heading into game 4. Like, at least think over the idea of, do we play Kawhi? Because those minutes that he's out there, I give him respect and props for trying to play, but those minutes that he's out there, he's actually hurting the team. Like, there's no way around it.
15 points to last game.
Yeah.
I don't need a role. I'm sorry, Kawhi. If you can't be Kawhi, I don't need another role player out there standing around. I don't.
Right. We talked about the Clippers being in trouble. There are a lot of people wondering, okay, the Miami Heat, who everybody had left for dead with no Jimmy Butler, against the Eastern Conference juggernauts, run away with the conference Boston Celtics. It's now 1-1 heading back to Miami. Swipa, are the Celtics in any trouble for this series?
They're in trouble with themselves. This is like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, one of the best books of all time, and one of the best movies of all time. And it's a great play. It's a great play as well. I acted in it in high school. There you go. Well, then, Andy, there you go. If you need tips on the play in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you're the person to ask. But look, we've been saying this, the green monster, the Boston Wall. There's a green monster, but it's not necessarily the Celtics. It's the Celtics within their mind. They inexcusably lost this game to the Miami Heat, 111-101, because, as everyone said all year, you shoot 47% of your shots from 3. You living by that design. Eric Spoelstra is the one to take advantage of that, and he did. Andy, the perfect scenario is the Miami Heat shouldn't win. What if they do win game 3?
That psychology is real. That's real.
And then
psychology.
Now the Celtics, let's say they win game 4. Now we're going back to Boston, and guess what? Guess who's beaten you on your home floor multiple times? Oh, that's the Miami Heat. And now all of a sudden you're in a clash with Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. Like, what? So this is what I'm telling you. The Celtics, it's not about talent. There's something, Andy, about them that they just fold into this thing. They fall into these habits, and those habits, if you're an elite coach like Eric Spoelstra, you're like, oh, check that off. I know exactly how to take advantage of that. And then Bam Adebayo, and everybody's like, oh, what I love about the Miami Heat, they're like, oh, there's no way they're going to shoot 53% from three again. Who said? They did that last year to the Milwaukee Bucks the whole first round. Yeah. Because if you leave them open or if you give them any confidence, they're going to cook you. So, look, I don't think they're actually in trouble.
They're never going to be afraid. That's the thing. You're talking about the Celtics getting inside their own head, allowing that sort of doubt to creep in. Ultimately, water may seek out its own level, and Boston just having more talent may overwhelm Miami, but Miami will never get scared. And that's the one thing you always know about them. Going to the others, Eric Spoelstra, I think, is considered the consensus best coach in the NBA. Jamal Mosley has had a terrific run so far coaching the Magic. I believe second in Coach of the Year voting behind Dagnall. Do you think that they beat Cleveland in Game 3 by almost 40 points? Are you anticipating this ending up tied going back to Cleveland?
No, Cleveland can't do that, man. That team has no experience at all. But you know what? The Cavs fell apart versus the Knicks last year. We'll see. I really, truly doubt it because, again, Paolo Banchero, turns it on after he started off really flat in that game. He's huge, too. Like him and Franz and them, they're both really good players. But Donovan. You can't give them any life. You cannot do it.
The thing about the Magic, and this is not their time, but I think they're really moving in the right direction. What I find really fun to watch with them is they're such an unusual team. Like they're built so much with their front court and with Banchero and Wagner. Those guys do a lot of playmaking for them. Their backcourt is really, really defense first. Like Jalen Suggs, that guy gets up and in you, and he can wreck offenses at the point of attack. But they're so unconventionally built. I would think that even if you're playing them in a series, it takes a little while to get used to them just because they're different than most teams you're going to see in the NBA.
Well, they're long. So, it's Jalen Suggs, Gary Harris, Cole-Anthony when he plays, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Wagner, Anthony Black. They're all long. Yeah. They're all big. They're all slashers, all of them. So, Markelle Fultz, they just have so many bodies. And I think because when you're playing versus a team with that many wings, it's just they can literally put a lineup out and say, cool, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter Jr., and Jalen Suggs. Go get them. What? Why is everybody switching? Everyone's switching. Everyone's at least 6'8" or Jalen Suggs and a hound. So yeah, they have it all. They really have a really bright future. I think Paolo 2 years from now will be similar to what Jason Tatum was by his 2021 season. I think he can be an all-NBA player. He has all the skill sets. He has a bag. He has a nice shot. He's been able to put triple-double performances up 30, 10, and 5 in this last game. He has everything. I think he can legitimately be an all-NBA player next couple of years. So I'm really excited for him. I'm excited for Jamal Mosley, too. Turning around that franchise is no small thing.
It's awesome. It's really cool. Also, Saturday, there's a game, Lakers Nuggets, but we are not talking about that one. I'm Andy Kamenetsky. He's Swipa. This has been Locked On NBA. Everybody enjoy your playoff weekends. And again, make sure you are making Locked On NBA and all of the shows in the Locked On NBA network your first listen Monday through Friday, and sometimes, particularly during the playoffs, during the weekends as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channels, and we will see everybody soon.